Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this very first session of 2023 of Healthy Living Together. My name is Kellie Phelps, and I'll be doing your introductions today. Please note that your audio is automatically muted, and we do request that you use the Q&A function, not the chat function, at the bottom of your screen for any questions today, and we'll do our best to address everyone at the end of this session. And please remember that this event is being recorded, which means that there will be a link sent in a follow-up email, and the video will be available online for viewing at a later time. Todd Hillman is our speaker for today. Chief Hillman has been a member of the Sandusky Fire Department since 1987. He took the position as chief in 1994 and began in the Sanilac County Emergency Management Department in 2003. He was certified fire instructor since 2002 and a state instructor since 2011. Chief Hillman is also the State of Michigan Training Coordinator since 2017. Chief Hillman will be presenting to us today on weather, medical, and fire emergencies. We thank you for being here today, Chief Hillman.
Thanks, Kellie. Okay, well, good afternoon, everybody. We'll get going again. As Kellie said, I'm Chief Todd Hillman, Sandusky Fire Department, and was asked to bring some information to you folks. We're going to cover a few topics. The first one is going to be first aid, just basic first aid things for in the home. And the second thing is going to be some weather preparedness, and we're going to talk about some weather issues. And then finally, of course, since I'm the fire chief, I have to talk about some fire safety tips through the winter season. So I'm going to get ready and share my screen here. And we're ready to go. Hopefully everybody can see that. And so we'll start off here with just some basic first aid for everybody to listen to and to see if they've got the means to do this in their own home. Kind of our objectives, we're going to recognize the benefits of obtaining first aid and CPR certification. And I'll tell you where you can obtain that free of charge. Identify proper procedures for a variety of medical emergencies. And finally, assist in administering first aid when someone's injured and also not do any more harm that they're already in. So to start off, let's do a little quiz here to kind of see where everybody's at. The first question is, after an accident, immediately move the victim to a comfortable position. Is that true or false? Of course, it's false. We never want to move anybody that's been involved in an accident until we know what's going on or what has happened to them. Second one, if the person's bleeding, do we use a tourniquet? Well, that answer is also false. We try to use direct pressure unless it's a wound that has happened, maybe an amputation or something like that, that we physically can't stop the bleeding by applying pressure to that. And we'll talk more about that later. Third, signs of a heart attack include shortness of breath, anxiety, perspiration. Is that true or false? The answer to that is true. And the last questions, all burns can be treated with first aid alone. No medical emergency attention is needed. Well, that one there is false, depending on what type of burns you have. And we're going to talk about the 3 different types of burns today as well. So first thing is help, emergency. And one of the first things that we need to think about doing is dialing 911 and not being scared to dial that number. Sometimes it's dialed when it don't need to be dialed, but if there's ever a situation that you're in and you're not real sure, dial the number. The dispatchers are more than happy to take that call and make sure that everything's okay than to have something happen and not make that call. So everybody knows that number, 911, okay? Some of the things that we'll do is some severe bleeding. If we've severely cut our hand, we're not able to stop it with direct pressure, just going on, or you have no way of getting to the hospital, the emergency room, you need to dial 911 and get that taken care of. Choking, it's another good one. That happens a lot when we're out and about. Somebody choking on food, and then we sit back and look at this too, and we'll talk about this as well. Is this guy choking or is he having a heart attack? That's signs and symptoms that we got to be talking about. Next one is the heart attack, and this is where seconds make a difference, because if the heart's stopping, we have no circulation, and that's never a good outcome when that type of thing happens. So the first thing that we want to do when we're out, and all of us do that, even first responders or do this, is we have to evaluate the scene. What's going on where we're at? Is there something that's happened there that's caused this, that if you go up there, are you going to get in trouble yourself? So we want to sit back, evaluate the scene, just take a quick look around it and see what's going on. Was something spilled on the floor? Did they trip over something? Is there wires or whatever? We need to look at that type of thing and make sure we're safe. Again, with my first responders, if we aren't safe taking care of trying to get to that person, we're not going to do them any good. Prioritize care. Who's worse? If there's more than one, who's worse? Who needs care quicker? Okay. And then we need to check for medical tags. Nowadays, there's a lot of medical tags for diabetics and allergic to different medications and things like that. And then just quickly do a head to toe look. Is this the only place that this person has got an injury? Okay. And again, we only move them if it's absolutely necessary for their own safety. If somebody's fallen and they're safe where they're laying, we want to leave them there. Do not move them around. There could be injuries that we have no idea or can't see. Let's first of all talk about no breathing. We need to administer CPR. Now, you guys can get CPR by reaching out to Sanilac County Med Control at 648-3092. And I believe they have monthly classes on Saturdays that people can come in and learn CPR. So write that number down, 810-648-3092, and reach out to them, and they can get you certified in CPR if you need be. But if during that case, if you see somebody that's having a heart attack, first thing you want to do is lay that person down on his or her back, okay? You want to make sure that you get them off of couches, get them off the bed, get them on a good firm foundation, so that when you start doing chest compressions, they'll be effective. When they're on bed, of course, the cushioning in the bed and everything will affect the quality of the chest compression. So you want to make sure that you get them on the floor on a hard surface. Then you want to slightly tip the head back to make sure that they're able to breathe. It's called the ABCs, and we're going to talk about that here in another slide or two. Tip their head back, make sure they're breathing. If they're not breathing, you're going to need to assist them in breathing. And this here's where you need a CPR mask or something like that. You will actually breathe for that person on a 30 compressions to 2 breaths, and you will continue doing that until help arrives. Okay. The very first thing you want to do when this happens, though, is start dial 911 and get your assistance coming. I'm going to talk now about some bleeding. Minor cuts and things like that, you know, we take care of them at home, and we can put a Band-Aid on them and be perfectly fine. But if something happens, we get cut a little bit deeper, we may need to have stitches. We need to be able to apply pressure to that wound to get the bleeding to stop. And we want to do that and slow down the blood flow. Okay, we only got so much blood. We don't want to lose a lot. But again, on the other side, a little bit of blood looks like a lot of blood. So you need to stay calm and make sure that you're taking care of your patient or your loved one or whoever it may be. Want to wear gloves if you've got them, just because of all the different things that's around nowadays. Even first responders, we make sure that we wear gloves and masks and everything when we're working with people, just to provide protection for ourselves as well. We want to cover the wound. Cover it with a gauze or some light material, and then just apply pressure to it to try to get it to stop bleeding. If it's a deep enough cut, you need to head for the emergency room and get some stitches and get things put back together. This one here is a tough one to talk about. If it's a body part, if we're amputated, and say we're working with a saw on a wood project and our husband or our boy or whatever happens to get his finger in the way of the saw blade and he cuts a finger, we want to get that finger. You want to pack that finger in ice so that it can be taken to the hospital with them. If you do that quick enough and all the procedures are right, we can probably save that finger. So we want to make sure that we get that amputated part and put it on ice as soon as possible. Shock's kind of an interesting thing. It's whenever somebody goes through some type of trauma, that the body starts to act a little bit different. They start to get faint. They feel clammy and things like that. You want to get them to lay down. Get them to lay down, lay on the floor. Cover them up with a blanket because they're going to start getting cold. And that's because of the feeling of the blood not getting to all the organs. The body starts to feel cold. We want to raise the feet so that we can get the blood back to the main part of the body where all the organs are and all the important parts are, up in your chest area and so on. Okay. Heart attack, probably one of the biggest ones that we deal with is knowing signs and symptoms. Very first thing, if we suspect somebody's having a heart attack, is call 911 because the minutes are very important when it comes to heart attacks, making sure that we can keep blood flow and everything to the victim. We want to make them comfortable, have them sit down, have them lay down, whatever needs be, okay, to get them in a comfortable mood, loosen any tight clothing, loosen up their shirts, get them to feel comfortable, okay. Check for any medication. You want to round up all the medication that they may have. What you should really have is you should have a list. If it's a family member in your house, there should be lists with all the medications that everybody takes readily available that you can give to the EMS providers when they arrive. Want to keep the victim still and calm. Try to talk to them as much as you can. They're going to feel like an elephant sitting on their chest, and they're not going to be real happy campers, and they're going to be scared as well because of what's going on, because it's a very unusual feeling that's going on with you at that time. Don't give them anything. Don't give them anything to eat or drink while they're in this condition, and go from there. The next thing is choking. What do we do for choking? A lot of people choke. Heimlich maneuver is probably one of the first things that we're going to do, but what we're going to do first of all, and it kind of goes back to that one picture of the guy in the beginning with the pizza, was he having a heart attack or was he choking? Walk up to the person and ask them a question, see if they can speak to you. If they can speak to you, chances are it's not a choking situation and there's nothing lodged in their throat. If they can't, then there's a very big chance that we're choking. We want them to speak or cough, of course, and if they can't do either, we're going to start proceeding on a Heimlich maneuver. We're going to have them bend over forwards, and we're going to put them on the back to try to see if we can dislodge whatever's in their throat or esophagus there, so they can start breathing again. If that don't work out for you, you want to do abdominal thrusts. If you're not familiar with that, like the picture shows here, we'll reach around behind them and we'll put our arms out in front, basically cup our hands in front of them right about their belly button, and we're going to quickly jerk in and up at the same time. And we're going to proceed and do that for several times to try to see if we get whatever's in there to dislodge. Okay. Repeat this sequence over and over and over until you can get it to dislodge. Of course, remember the first thing that we always do is dial 911 to start getting help on its way. Okay. Next thing we got is electrical shock. Well, electric seems to be a pretty common thing for us. The first thing, we don't touch the patient. If we know that they've been shocked, we do not touch them. Again, it goes back to what I talked about a few minutes ago as far as assessment and looking around to make sure that the scene is safe, the scene is secure for us to be there and to go in and touch that individual. The last thing we want to do is to bend down and touch them and get shocked ourselves. Now we've got two people down instead of just one. If we can, we want to turn the power off, whether it's a light switch, unplugging the cord from the wall that they're dealing with, or if it's as much as going to your breaker box and shutting off all the power, depending on what they're working with. We got to get the power shut off. As soon as we shut that power off, it becomes a lot safer for all of us involved. Call 911. Again, do that right out of the get-go. Dial 911 and get help coming if you know that person's been shocked. And then we want to remove the person from the live wire. If we can do that safely, the key word here is safely. If you are unsure whether that electricity is on or off, do not touch, do not try to move that patient. Okay. If you can take a stick or something, maybe that's not wet, remember water conducts, and move it away from that patient so that you can get to the patient, you can do that. But please use extreme caution when you're doing those types of things to make sure that nobody else gets hurt. Once we get them clear to that, we're going to check for breathing. If they're breathing, it's good. Let's just take and watch them until EMS arrives. If they're not breathing, we're going to go back to what we talked about earlier and we're going to start CPR and start doing that procedure. So let's take a few seconds here and kind of go through and see if what we picked up on. First of all, bleeding. What do we do in the case of bleeding? We apply direct pressure. Choking. What do we do in the case of choking? We're going to do abdominal thrusts. If we're not breathing, what are we going to do? We're going to start CPR. We're having a heart attack. What do we need to do? Keep the victim calm. Keep the victim still. Assure them that help is on the way. And if we have shock, what are we going to do? We're going to elevate the feet. Okay, very good. Hopefully everybody did well on that little exercise. So just real quick in review, hopefully you understand what to do, procedures for no breathing. We're going to start CPR if there's no breathing. Okay, we're going to check for breaths. We're going to do the ABCs called airway, breathing, and circulation. We're going to check them three things. Okay, again, going out and get your CPR certification is the way to know how to do this and do it the right way. The next one's bleeding. Do we know what to do for bleeding? First thing we need to do is apply direct pressure. Okay, try to stop that bleeding. Shock, what are we going to do? We're going to lay that person down. We're going to elevate their feet. We're going to cover them with a blanket. Okay, keep them warm. Heart attack, we've talked about this a couple times. What are we going to do? We're going to get the person to sit down, lay down, relax. We're going to loosen up any tight clothing, say, around their necks, because they're going to think that they're starving for air. And we're going to reassure them that help is on the way. Choking, we're going to do abdominal thrusts. Make sure that we can get whatever it is in their throat out. Remember to ask them before you even do that. Ask them a question. Ask them their name. Ask them anything. And if they can answer you, they're okay. They don't have nothing caught in their throat. Okay. If they can't answer you, then we've got an issue and we got to start taking care of things. Okay. And electrical shock. What to do? Remember, we don't touch them. We do scene safety. We assess the area. Is everything safe? Is the power shut off? Can we safely go get them? Remember, if we go down, we're not helping them either. So we got to make sure that the scene is safe. And actually, in all these instances, for the bleeding, the heart attacks, the shock, what caused that? You know, you need to stand there and take a look around and say, what caused that? Is it something that I'm going to get involved in that could maybe get me in trouble too? So let's make sure that we're safe before we go. I know it's probably going to be a loved one that's involved in this, but we have to think about that as well. If we can't help them, we're not going to do them any good. Okay. We could talk a little bit about burns here, just real quick, just the different types of burns that's out there. First of all, the first degree burn. It's a red and it's got painful skin, basically a sunburn. Okay. Not a whole lot needs to be done with that. Maybe apply some creams, some lotions and things to keep it from hurt and keep it moist so that it will heal itself over the period of time. Second degree burns. It's where the skin actually blisters. Okay. We don't want to break the blisters. We want to wrap it and with a real light, maybe a gauze or something. We don't want it real tight. We just want to be able to cover it to protect it. Okay. And again, don't break the blisters. And if you've got concern, go see your doctor. Go see your private care physician and have them take a look at it to make sure everything's okay. And the third one that we've got is third degree burns, and that's charring, and that's a deep burn, deep tissue damage, they say. Okay, the skin is actually burnt. It smells. You do not want to put anything on this at all. Okay, you want to cover it with a real light material. Nothing tight. Just cover it so that it's protected. And this person needs to go to the hospital immediately. So you need to dial 911 to get this taken care of. Exposure to hazardous materials. You'll probably say, why are we talking about that? I'm in my house. I don't have no hazardous materials in my house. Well, yes, you do. You have many things in your house, and I'm going to give you an example that I give all of our firefighters in training when we start talking, making entry into houses and things we need to watch for. Is every house has got a hazardous material location, and if you sit back and think about it for a second, where would that be? How about under our kitchen sink? Do you ever think about what's underneath your kitchen sink? We have all kinds of cleaners and ammonia and bleach and you name it. If we need a place to put it, it's under the kitchen sink. Okay. So a lot of times, a lot of them chemicals and things like that that we use, when we mix them together, they can create a vapor cloud. They can do all kinds of things. Okay. So every house has got a hazardous material location. You don't have to report it or anything like that, but you do. And that's an area that you really need to be thinking about and watching out for when you're putting stuff in there. Okay. And some of the ways that it affects us, it can get in our eyes. And that can be either by splashing, or maybe they mix together and they put off a little bit of a vapor and it got in our eyes and our eyes burn. We want to make sure that we read the label and do what it says as far as emergency precautions when you get stuff in the eyes. And 90% of the time, it's to flush your eyes with lots of water to get that material out of there. The other one is on the skin, is when it splashes on you, it can cause burns, things like that. You know, toilet bowl cleaner, things like that. It's got hydrochloric acid in them, which can burn your skin as well. Again, it's going to be flush with lots of water to get that off your skin. Okay. The other one's inhalation. When it comes to inhalation, it's the vapor cloud or whatever it means. I'm sure that over a course of time, probably everybody's been in a little situation where they sprayed a cleaner and they, oh, wow, that's strong. And that's inhalation. And the way to solve that is to get yourself out into the fresh air and breathe some fresh air. And if it really causes some irritation, you need to get to the hospital and have them check out your lungs. And the last one there is indigestion, is where you actually take it internally, whether you swallow something like that or whatever. So again, there's many, depending on the chemical, is how you treat that. So if you look at the bottle, it'll tell you if it's ingested, what you need to do. So make sure you follow those directions. But again, take a look underneath the sink and see what you got under there. You might be surprised. Broken bones, that's falls and everything else. Again, want to look around, kind of see what could happen to them. Are we okay? Is there a reason? Did the step break or whatever? Why did this guy fall down? Ask him what happened. Find out what's going on. Find out where they hurt. And we want to treat them for shock. And this isn't so much a blood loss, but it's just a shock to the system, the body itself. So treat them for shock. Whoops, sorry about that. The biggest thing is we don't want to really move them depending on what is broken. If we can support an arm that might be broken, or maybe part of a leg that's possibly broken, we need to support that. So don't move. And trust me, the patient will let you know that they don't like it because it's extremely painful. In the case of older folks, when we start having broken hips and falling and stuff like that, we really want to leave that person alone until some qualified help is there to help make things happen. Unless, you know, that person is in danger where they're at and something needs to be moved. We have to make some decisions sometimes that we don't always like, but we have to make some decisions and move them. But unless it's absolutely necessary, leave that person there until the trained medical personnel get there to take care of things. Another one we run into is heat exhaustion. There's two different setups here. There's heat exhaustion and then there's heat stroke. First one we're going to talk about is heat exhaustion and what to do. And this is where people are just out working and it's just a hot day or working in a very hot place. And they just they just don't feel good. They're kind of getting nauseated and things like that. And that's heat exhaustion. That's what that is. We want to move them to a cool place, you know, have them lay down, elevate their feet again. We elevate the feet a lot. Okay. Loosen up some clothing, give them fluids, give them some water, give them some Gatorade, things like that. Pop, coffee is not the right things to give them. You need to give them some clear liquids and get the water inside them to help them cool down. Just the temperature is extremely warm. Apply cool compresses, maybe, you know, to their forehead, under their armpits, things like that to help cool them down. The next one up here is heat strokes. This one here is a lot more severe. The heat exhaustion is just from being in a super hot place. But once you get beyond that point and that person don't want to quit, we end up what we call with heat stroke. Heat stroke is basically is where the person's body temperature is over 104 degrees. And at that point, a lot of different things can happen into the body. We want to immediately dial 911 and get trained medical crew on their way to you, the EMS crew. And so we want to do that. We want to cool that person down in the same way as we do for the heat exhaustion. Okay, give them liquids, get them some cold compresses, get them out in some cooler air where they, they may be in a factory or somewhere. Get them outside, get them where it's cooler, get them in an air conditioned area. Do that, and then you want to just continually monitor them until the trained medics or whoever show up to do that. Okay, so now just to go through some first aid procedures for burns. What are we going to do? We're going to see what type of burn it is. Okay, we're not going to cover them tightly with any type of bandaging. We just cover them loosely. First degree burn, maybe just apply some creams, put some cool water on it to help cool the skin down. Second degree, we're going to have some blisterings. Remember, we don't want to pop them blisters. That's part of the healing process. We can apply a little cool water to that. And if you are concerned, reach out to your doctor and see what their thoughts are. And on third degree burns, we definitely want to get that person to the hospital. We need to dial 911 and get things going. Exposure to hazardous materials. Remember, we all have them in our house. Everybody has them. So you need to take a look around and make sure what you got where. Do these two chemicals, should they be sitting underneath the sink in the same place together when they react against each other? Okay, get them out of there. And remember the different ways that you can be affected. Okay, inhalation, exposures on the skin, splashes, you name it, is what happens. Broken bones, what can we do with broken bones? We can splint them and secure them the best we can. Again, the patient will definitely let you know if you're doing something that's not real comfortable for them. Okay, the best bet is probably to leave them alone, especially when it comes, like I said before, hips and things like that. Try to leave that patient or that person at that right where they fell. Okay, try not to move them around. And heat exhaustion, heat stroke, again, get them out to cool places, get them some liquids to drink, get some cold compacts, remember forehead, under the arms, things like that to help cool down their temperature. Okay, and monitor them. And remember, heat stroke, we call 911. Okay. And lastly, in this part, just some things to remember. Medical emergencies can happen anytime. They don't matter, day or night. They really don't matter. So we need to be prepared for that. Act quickly, calmly, and correctly. That's probably one of the biggest things that we see, or I've seen in my years of doing stuff like this, is you got to be calm. If you're wound up and all upset over something, all you're doing is making your patient that much more anxious and worked up as well. So make sure you just act quickly, calmly, do the best you can do for what you know. Anything is better than nothing. So just make sure you do that. Consider being certified in first aid and CPR, as I said in the beginning. Sanilac County Med Control does this. I believe it's on a monthly basis, I think on a Saturday. 810-648-3092 is their number. Reach out to them. Get certified in CPR and learn the basics of first aid. It'll be good for you and the whole family and your friends. Okay? So that'll be the end of that particular section. And I guess now we'll roll over into some weather preparedness. And I guess we'll just kind of talk for a minute about Sanilac County. Sanilac County, we're pretty fortunate. Yeah, we have some thunderstorms and we have some lightning and we have some winter storms that come through, but for the most part, we're pretty fortunate up here. Not only that, the thing that I've found of doing emergency management since 2003 in this county, that Sanilac County residents are very resilient and very resourceful. When the winter storm comes, they know that they throw another log on the fire and make sure they got enough food to get them through for a few days. You know, when it gets hot, they know that they're going to go out to the beach and enjoy the beach, or they're going to be in air conditioner. And when the power goes out, they know that I don't want to talk about this, but for fire safety, we're going to light a candle and use some flashlights. And we're very resourceful. and very resilient. So we're very lucky there. And I'm very happy that everybody's like that in this county, because there's other places that they're not. When storms come, that's kind of like the end of it. But weather in Sanilac County is very localized. It's not like the hurricanes that hit the Gulf Coast, where we're covering entire states, just huge areas we're covering. I mean, go across the state of Florida, the entire center of Florida, and cause damage. We're lucky. We don't have that. We may have a tornado that might touch down. And yeah, it might create some damage for a mile or two and maybe quarter mile wide. But other than that, we really don't have a lot of things. During Christmas, we had that storm come in, kind of blizzard weather. It was here for a day or two and it was gone. And so we're very lucky when it comes to that here in Sanilac County. So we just ask everybody to use common sense when it comes to stuff like that. And I want to take just a second here and talk about when to call 911. Okay. We really want to be, I don't want to say cautious, but think about when you're calling. Remember, there's still all the other emergencies going on. There's still people having heart attacks. There's still car accidents. There's still family troubles, all this stuff going on. So if for some reason our lights go out and we look outside and we see nothing like arcing wires or wires down, we don't need to dial 911 and say, hey, my power's out. When's it going to come back on? We don't need to do that. Okay. The girls or the dispatchers would love to talk to you, I'm sure. But at that time, we've still got a lot of other things going on. Okay. So, reach out to neighbors. Hey, do you have power? Don't you have power? What are you doing? Reach out to the elderly that how are you doing? Do you got electricity? Okay, maybe you need to come to our house. Just do things like that. That's probably more important than anything when it comes to weather preparedness here in Sanilac County. Everybody is really super good about it. One of the things that we as emergency management, we like to stress to people is to have a 24-hour preparedness kit. And this here's off the FEMA site. If you go to ready.gov through FEMA on a web browser, you can come up with all kinds of things. That's actually where this particular 2 slides came from. It's off of that. And just some of the kits that they want you to have, or we want you to have, in the event that we run out of power or we have a severe weather storm or anything along that line. First of all, water and non-perishable food for several days. Okay. Yeah, non-perishable food is canned food. And water, the rule of thumb is a gallon per person per day. Okay. So realistically, if you've got a 3 people that live in your house, you need to have about 10 gallons of water ready to go. Safe, drinkable, potable water. Okay. And also when it comes to pets, you need to have water for your pet as well, because they're going to need a drink too. Okay. Extra cell phone batteries and chargers. Well, during storms, you got electricity. Having a charger is important, but if we don't have electricity, then having some extra batteries, they make these batteries that they sell at different stores, they're about 4 or 5 inches long. They're extra batteries for phones. Have some of them ready. Okay. Battery operated or hand cranked radio that can receive NOAA weather tones. Everybody needs to have a NOAA weather radio in their house. If you can, go out and buy one. They're available at many stores that you can get them. Just go on in and ask them for their weather radio where they're at, and they get them. They're probably anywhere from $30 to $40. You can pick one up, and they can be used 24 hours a day. They sit on the shelf in your house. They make no noise until there's a weather alert, and then they make a noise and they set off tones and will alert you to what's going on. And you can set them to all kinds of different events, whether it's watches, warnings, severe thunderstorms, tornado warnings. You can set them up however you want. So reach out and get one of them. Some flashlights and batteries, of course. First aid kit, that'd be nice to have. Make sure we got Band-Aids and gauze and things like that to take care of our people if anything should happen to them. Some whistle or an air horn or something to signal for help, to let people know that you're still there. or if something happened to your house and you're down in the basement of your house, that we'll know that there's somebody in the basement of the house. Dust mask. We start having a lot of dusty and things going on. Plastic sheeting and duct tape to shelter in place. Well, everybody says, what's shelter in place? Well, if we happen to have a hazardous material spill or an accident somewhere, and you are close proximity to what's going on, and we are unable to control the cloud, let's say, that's coming off of this and it's headed toward your house or something like that, we're going to ask you to shelter in place. And what that means is you stay in your house, you shut off your heating and cooling units, and then you take tape and this plastic and seal your windows. Okay. We don't want you outside. We feel it's a lot better if you just stay inside than to come out in there. So that's what shelter in place means. Excuse me. Some towelettes, garbage bags, just general personal sanitation items you'll need. Some wrenches, some tools. Never know, you might need some tools in this case. A can opener, open up them cans of food so when we get hungry. And maps of your local area. Everybody's pretty familiar with their area. So that's not a big one, but it's one that FEMA would like to have on there. Your prescriptions and medications is important. And make sure you have a list of them, make sure you have medications available to you, and an extra set of glasses. If something happens, you lose yours, that you've got an older pair that you had before the ones you just got, and put them in that emergency kit. At least you can see with them and you can probably read with them. Infant formula and diapers, you want to do that. Pet foods, water, supplies for your pet, as I mentioned before. We want to make sure that you have documents for your family. Anything that is of important, insurance policies, etc., is what they talk about there. And this will be available online afterwards. So we're done here, so you'll be able to go back and read through this again. Need to have some cash and some change. Emergency reference materials, a first aid book, tell you how to treat certain things. And then you need some blankets and stuff for everybody in case it's kind of cold out. Fire extinguishers, not a bad idea to have there. Matches that are waterproof so that you can use them if you need to start a fire or get something going, you can. Feminine products, personal hygiene items, hand sanitizer. Remember, your hand sanitizer, you're probably going to want that because you're probably not going to have water, because that water that you got is for drinking. So you're going to need some hand sanitizer to keep your hands clean. Pencils and paper, and then some activities for kids. They get rather bored when they're in there, so you want to make sure that you have activities for the kids. So that's it as far as weather preparedness. Just like I said, go back when we're done here and review that and see how your kit is, and put some pieces together. And lastly, wouldn't be right if the fire chief didn't talk about some fire safety things. So we'll zip through this fairly quickly, and then at the end, if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer any of them. Okay. One of the biggest things that we've been running into lately is reduce your chances of cooking fires. Pay attention to your cooking, okay? If you leave the room, turn it off. Turn off the stove, okay? Don't cook if you're sleepy, if you're impaired. It just, a lot of things happen. Keep flammable items away from the heat sources. Curtains, pot holders, towels, etc. What we've found several times lately is we're storing things on top of the stoves. We get a box of new pots and pans and it's still in the box. Where do we set it? We set it on top of the stove, and accidentally turn the stove on and not realize that we turned the burner on underneath to that particular box. Or we just store things, we only use one burner, so we pile things on the rest of the stove. Please don't do that. And you may say, really, who does that? It's not uncommon. We do see it a lot. All right. Clean off your stovetops, keep them free of grease. Clean flammable cleaners and other pressurized bottles away from the heat sources. Makes sense, okay? Heats up, that can explode. Okay. If you got a grease fire on your stove, oil and water don't mix. Do not add water to it. Throwing water on it makes it worse, okay? Turn off the burner, cover it with a lid or a cookie sheet, to stop the oxygen. That'll put the fire out, and that's all you need to do. Don't move the pan. The hot grease could severely burn you, okay? It goes back to what we talked about before. you're going to get burned, and you're going to have probably a second or possibly even a third degree burn, possibly, depending on how bad it gets. Leave your house and call 911. Have the fire department come and check things out, make sure everything's safe inside your house. As far as candles, we all like candles, got them at my house, but the biggest day is Christmas Day as far as candles and catching things on fire. So we need to be extremely careful with candles. You know, Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, New Year's Day are all things that when we use a lot of candles. So be extremely careful with them. And probably the one thing, and if this is not on the slide, but just reminded me, had a person once had a candle on the countertop and had a bag of potato chips set next to that. And believe it or not, them potato chips really burn. There's a lot of oil in potato chips. So be extremely careful around other things and having things around candles. Candle safety tips, make sure they're flameless ones if you can. I know it's nice to have real candles burning, but sometimes in areas we just need to use the flameless ones, the ones that's got batteries. Remember, we always blow them out when we leave the room or go to bed or leave the house or whatever. We always blow them out. Okay, keep the candles out of reach of children. And if you do have candles, make sure they got a sturdy base underneath them to help hold that candle up so it don't accidentally get knocked over real easy. Just a circle of safety, keep flammables materials a foot away from any candles, and keep lit candles away from decorations or other things that can burn. Okay. Move on just real quick, some heating safety. 60% of the fires occur in a fireplace or a chimney area. And the biggest thing here is if the weather changes here anytime soon, we're going to start firing up them wood stoves, and we need to make sure that the chimneys are clean. You know, clean them out, get the clear soot out of them. Have somebody come and clean. Okay. Most chimney fires are due because of that. It's a tarry material that builds up inside of your pipes, and when it gets hot enough, it lights on fire, and it kind of sounds like a jet engine when it's going off. So we need to take care of that. It can cause fires if there's cracks. You know, if we have a masonry chimney, bricks and block, if there's cracks in your mortar, it can get into your rafters and your roof and start a fire. And the same thing as far as the metal round chimney stacks will do the same thing as well. Or if they just get super hot, they can start the materials around them on fire. So we want to be careful of that. Just heating fire peak times is from 6 to 8 o'clock at night. It's when everybody's getting home and they need to stoke up the fire. So we want to make sure heating deaths occur between 12 and 2 a.m. Most of the fires are caused because combustibles are too close to the heating elements, equipment. That's blankets and curtains and things like that by electric heaters. Okay. Little space heater safety. Nationwide, almost 80% of the heating related deaths are due to careless use of space heaters, usually combustibles too close, blankets because we're cold, so we get out the blanket, and then we start overloading circuits. The average electric heater is anywhere from probably around 1,500 watts is what they say. If you turn your box around, you can see it. And a lot of people will plug them into the nice little brown extension cords that we can buy at the stores and plug them in. Them cords are only rated 1,800 watts. So we are pushing them right to the limit as it is. And then we take and we plug something else into that cord. Maybe we need a lamp or something there. That's all wattage, and it all adds up. And then if we don't want to trip over the cord, we'll put up a rug or something over top of the cord so that we don't trip over it. That creates heat in that cord. So just a combination of things will make it start a fire when it comes to space heating. Smoking, just make sure everything's out. I know we're on a hospital thing here. We should be talking about stopping smoking. But for those that are still smokers, we need to make sure they're completely out. Make sure we use a good ashtray that don't tip over. Don't put them out in planters and things like that. And cigarettes can smolder for hours. And so we just want to make sure that we're safe when it comes to cigarette smoking. Electrical, that little picture up there in the upper left is probably one of my biggest pet peeves. We got that little circuit there with 2 plugs, and we says, well, gee, now we're going to plug 6 in. So we go buy one of them and we plug everything we want in. Again, we need to make sure that we don't overload circuits, and it can cause problems with the wiring in the walls. Avoid putting extension cords across the doorways. Inspect heat tapes before use. Some of our trailers and mobile homes we have heat tapes underneath. Let's check them and make sure that they're okay before we plug them in to use them. And then the last thing, we're kind of beyond this point in time of this year, but make sure we don't plug more light strands together than the directions say are safe. But maybe remember that for next Christmas. A plan and practice your home escape plan. I talk to kids about this all the time, about building plans, where you're at, how you're going to get out of the house, and where's your meeting place. It's important to have a meeting place in the front yard at one particular object, whether it's a tree, a certain tree, it's the mailbox, it's the flagpole. Everybody in the family needs to know where that meeting place is, and everybody needs to go there. And you need to practice your plan. A lot of times, as I'm talking to the kids in October, I send them home and ask them to have the practice their plan. And then on Saturday, they come to the fire hall and I ask them about how'd the plan go. And they says, well, good, but mom and dad didn't do it with us. Mom and dad need to do it with them. Okay. Everybody needs to do it, all the way from grandma and grandpa, all the way down to the smallest child in the house. If you live there, you need to be part of the plan and you need to practice it. So please put a plan together and practice. Important safety elements. Alarms, make sure you got smoke alarms, make sure you got carbon monoxide, and a fire extinguisher wouldn't hurt nothing either. Just some important things to have. Smoke alarms, there was 107 deaths in Michigan last year. Only 6 of those happened in homes that had working smoke alarms. So that's a good thing. Check them once a month, make sure they're okay. Change the batteries once a year, okay? And replace them every 10 years. Placement and maintenance, we want to make sure that we can hear the alarm in every part of our home. They need to be in every sleeping area and every hallway. You can never have enough smoke alarms. They should be loud enough to wake you up, okay? So make sure you have plenty of those. Carbon monoxide is an invisible, odorless, colorless gas. There's no way to detect it without an alarm. You can't smell it, you can't taste it, okay? Carbon monoxide alarm should be in all homes within 10 feet of sleeping areas and near gas appliances that you may have. Carbon monoxide alarms, symptoms of CO mimic flu-like symptoms. Okay, you're going to be nauseated, you're going to have a headache, just a lot of things. Any type of level like that, you need to get outside into fresh air. Okay, high CO levels can be fatal, cause death within minutes. They sure can. Fire extinguishers. Get one, just get an ABC, go to your local hardware and pick one up and get it there, and then know how to use it as well. Fire extinguisher usage, learn how to use it. It's the pass, pull the pin, aim it, squeeze the trigger, and sweep it back and forth to the base of fire. Even Homer knows how to do it. If you have a fire, call 911, close the doors behind you, report the fire. Once you're out, stay out. Don't go back inside to get possessions or pets, okay? The fire department shows, let them know if anyone's unaccounted for. And that is that. So I will move back. There we go.
Oh, thank you, Chief. That's a lot of information to really think about. It's important to remember. What made me really think was what's underneath my sink. I think that as my husband and I have become empty nesters, we may have gotten a little lax there, and it's important to know what's underneath there and to keep those little ones safe.
Yep.
From getting at things they shouldn't. Let's take a look here and think we have a couple of questions for you. The first one I see is with regards to weather. What is the difference between a watch and a warning?
Okay. All right. So let's go to tornadoes. That seems to be where it's the most prevalent that everybody understand. When we have a watch, it means that conditions are right in the atmosphere to develop a storm of that magnitude. We may be under a watch and the sun may be out and it may be a beautiful day, but
Okay.
just the moisture, instability of the atmosphere and everything, there's a very high chance that a storm could come up.
Okay.
As far as a watch, or excuse me, as far as a warning, that means a storm is here and a tornado has actually been spotted.
Okay.
If we're under a warning, we need to get to a basement and take cover.
Okay. So a watch for severe weather on a sunny day does not necessarily mean that the weatherman is off base. It means that there are atmospheric conditions that are just right for something to happen. So we need to pay attention to those as well.
That is correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see here. Another question we had is, what are some safety concerns with portable generators? Maybe somebody's thinking about purchasing one of those because of cost versus an installed one.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's very possible. And probably the biggest thing that we got to think about there is there's many homes now that have the generators already hooked up to them with disconnects, but there's also several homes that do not. And what we run into is people will go out to a store and they'll buy themselves a generator, and the power's out because that's the only time we need it. So we went and bought one just as the power was out. And we take it home and we plug it in, we put gas in it, and we start it up. And whether we take an extension cord and plug in and go in and plug in our refrigerator or whatever we want to do with it, that's up to us. But where did we put the generator? A lot of times they'll put them inside the garage. Because, you know, it's snowing, blowing, cold, whatever. They don't want to go out and they got to put gas in it. Well, that creates a carbon monoxide problem. Okay. So carbon monoxide starts coming into the house, and we've had several times that we've had to go on carbon monoxide calls or somebody being sick because they've got a generator running inside the building. So you want to get that outside the building, outside the door, have a door shut behind it so that you can keep the carbon monoxide out. And also, you know, be extremely careful. If you think you're going to do that, have somebody come and install a disconnect box for you at your house that you can plug into. Don't try to do it the other way. There's a lot of different variations on how to do that, and I'm not going to get into them.
Right.
But it's just not safe. So have somebody come put a box in that you can plug your generator into if you needed to.
Okay, a lot of do-it-yourselfers. Sometimes it's a good idea to reach out to those professionals who know how to do a proper installation.
Absolutely.
Yes. Let's see, there's one more question here. So camping is extremely popular, and there's all kinds of camping gadgets out there, which is probably what this question came from. In the event that the utilities go out, is it okay to use my portable range top for cooking?
Well, sure.
Okay.
I get it. I'm not real sure where that question's going, but I'm trying to, you know, so
Propane, probably propane.
in their camper that they could bring out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Again, though, remember that we're dealing with an open flame and we're going to have carbon monoxide. So we have to be cautious of that, you know, and we need to use it in a well ventilated area.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Just give them a moment. I'm not seeing any more questions at this time. So I think we've answered them all.
All right.
Again, thank you, Chief Hillman, for your time and for being here today and sharing this important information with us.
Okay.
We appreciate you.
All right. Good day.
All right. Hey, everybody. The Healthy Living program was designed and launched by McKenzie Health Systems in partnership and collaboration with many other organizations, such as the Sanilac County Health Department, the MSU Extension, Sanilac County Community Mental Health, the Great Start Collaborative. These sessions take place on the third Wednesday of each month, and live sessions are always from 12 to noon. Next month, on February 15th, Calming Anxiety Through Mindfulness with Jackie Rabin of the MSU Extension. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your time.
Have a good day.
You too.